The US and China are holding a second day of talks on President Trump's tariffs and TikTok in the Spanish capital, Madrid. TikTok's Chinese parent company is facing the possibility of a ban in the US unless it sells its operations there by Wednesday. An American official says the Chinese delegation entered the talks with a fundamental misunderstanding of the US position. The official warned that the US is willing to let the ban on TikTok go ahead if an agreement cannot be reached. Well, Katrina Yu has been following the trade talks and reports from Beijing.
China's negotiating team is led by Vice Premier Lifeng, and China says that the team will be in Madrid until Wednesday. They're keeping expectations quite measured. Unlike the US side, Beijing generally does not like to confirm any details before they're concrete. However, we are seeing the Chinese government try to show a position of strength and also play a few of their cards in the background to these talks. We had the Commerce Ministry release a statement on Monday in response to the US calling on G7 and NATO nations to impose secondary sanctions on China for its purchase of Russian oil. Beijing says it opposes this move, and it's urging the US to be prudent in its words and deeds, and it's also vowed to safeguard its rights and interests. We've also had on Monday China announcing that the US company Nvidia has been found guilty of violating Chinese anti-monopoly laws. It says investigations will continue. However, if it's found guilty of further violations, then that could complicate the way the US chipmaker does business in Beijing. And on Sunday, we also had China announcing 2 more new probes, mainly targeting the US's semiconductor industry. Now, while China is trying to show a position of strength, we've had, unfortunately, for Beijing, some economic data from the month of August showing some economic weakness. Basically, many of those readings were either overall flat or disappointing. We had industrial output rise by 5.2% compared to the year before, but that was the worst measure of factory activity for the entire year. We also had retail sales rising 3.4%, missing expectations, and home sales continued to slide, and that decline has been going now for 4 years. And conversely, we had urban unemployment rise by 5.3%. Now, experts I've spoken to say that consumer and business sentiment remains pretty soft. One bright spot in China's economic growth story remains the stock market, though, which is performing quite strongly. And that's because many people expect, because of this weak economic data, that there may be more pressure on Beijing to roll out some economic stimulus before the end of the year in order to reach that 5% GDP target for 2025. Katrina Yu, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
Don't miss out and get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.